welcome to another episode of TuneInTiki. I'm Christina, and I'm here with Kelly. And who are we interviewing today?
Today we're going to be talking to a vibrant and whimsical artist all the way from the big island of Hawaii, Brad Parker with Tiki Shark.
Hi, Brad.
Hi, Brad. Aloha.
Hey, Tiki Tribe, it's Brad Tiki Shark Parker here, and I'm with TuneInTiki. And today's show is all about me.
Aloha. Welcome, Brad. We're so happy to be talking to you tonight.
Oh, well, me too. How's it going? It's going pretty good here.
So, are you having a drink for this interview?
We do.
What do you guys have?
Mai Tais.
We have Mai Tais.
Oh,
What are you
fun.
drinking?
Oh, just a basic rum and Mountain Dew.
So let's take it back to the beginning. So what inspired you to start Tiki Shark, and where did it all go from?
Tiki Shark. I had like a very long art career, and it was kind of like I worked on all these commercial projects for other people, for studios, for video game companies, I started creating like arcade games. If you remember back when you used to go to the mall and there was like an arcade, well, you probably too young, but you'd go to the mall and there'd be an arcade where all they had was stand-up machines. So I used to design those first. And then that's kind of moved into the home player unit, and then computer games happened. Everybody could play them on their computers. So I did all that, and then worked in comic books, and then I worked with like Christina Aguilera on like music videos, and like her first music video, and did all this Hollywood stuff, and all these things I did for like other people, which was fun. Sometimes the projects were great, but then I realized like right around the year 2000 that maybe I should, what do I want to do, and I just wasn't quite sure that I had the talent or the chutzpah to go out and really make it as a gallery artist, because at that time, actually in the 80s, I was thrown out of school for trying to paint.
Oh.
Because I painted like what I paint now. I painted, these hyper cartoons. And in the 80s, that was not accepted as art, especially in Los Angeles and in those very expensive art galleries there. So I was actually literally thrown out of my advanced painting art class during a portfolio review in front of the entire class by the professor, who was like a non-representationalist. And he's like, "You're not an artist, you're a cartoonist, out with you, go." And so like I went off and I made commercial art for all those years. And then by the year 2000 came around, Robert Williams had really pushed very, very hard to make the lowbrow art scene happen. And he even had his that magazine Juxtaposed became very big. It became the biggest selling art magazine like in the world, above all the other hoity art magazines. So suddenly somebody realized there's a lot of money in this lowbrow kind of underground counterculture art. And of course that goes hand in hand with tiki art. And that all goes together. I mean, that's like one kind of burst out of the other. And by the way, what I'm drinking now out of a proper drinking vessel. This is a Don the Beachcomber mug, and it is going to be coming out. And well, it's already almost out. It's almost here, everybody. It's shipping on July 15th. It's going to be here, and it comes with a hat. I mean, we had this cool little mug, and it was really great, and I really dug it. But then we're like, can't it like do something else? And no one else has done.
It's a really cool mug. I love the hat. Very unique.
You can drink with the hat on it, and it comes off, and you can still drink it on. It was just like, I don't know. It just. I don't know. We were brainstorming one day, and I thought, wouldn't it be funny if they had a hat? A lot of mugs had hats, but this one kind of it's made out of the bamboo paper and all that. So it's kind of more somewhat texturally interesting just to have do that. So anyway, around the year 2000, I got into business with a partner and my agent boss, and we were making like we ended up moving to Hawaii and making a whole tourist industry of our little selves, with all this kind of tourist stuff, mugs and we did beach mats and beach towels, and we tried to push some of the local businesses to make little tiki figurines to do them right. 'Cause they're all using designs they had from the 1940s because they just don't want to do anything new because they don't want to spend any money. So we were trying to push them really hard to catch up with the mainland, which was doing all these great things with lowbrow art and all this comic book stuff. Like they weren't even touching it; they had no clue what this was. And so I was like showing this kind of stuff to the galleries in Hawaii, and they all went, "Huh? What is that? Nobody wants to see a tiki. Tiki's like old school, and everybody wants to see happy dolphins and flowers." And like that's it. We don't want to see tikis or anything like that, because secretly, when you talk about tikis, you have to kind of talk about other things like human sacrifice and things like that. If you get into a real conversation, and Hawaii didn't want to talk about any of that anymore. So we set up Tiki Shark, and that was the big company and that created all kinds of souvenirs and things like that. And it also became secretly my vehicle to really start painting. I'd never painted in my whole artistic career. I'd painted on the computer, and I'd drawn, and I'd sketched out, whole storyboards for entire films, all by pencil and that sort of thing. But never had really painted, and I was scared to death of painting. And today I still am scared to death of painting, actually. But as soon as I sat down and I started going with it, I suddenly realized, I can probably paint too. It was a lot of fear to have to break through it just to get that one step. Even though I'd done all this other stuff for all these other people, like I'd be in a movie project and somebody would ask me to do something, and no matter what it was, I'd say, sure, I can try that. But to do it for yourself, that's a whole different thing. That's much, much scarier. So I was like, ooh, when I finally broke through that with the help of a boss was like, of course you can paint. Go ahead, just try something. What do you want to paint? I was like, tikis. And like, yeah, paint tikis. We're here in Hawaii. Why not? So actually I started painting tikis in LA. And then we ended up moving to Hawaii because we had friends in Hawaii who had a condo we could use for free. And we realized with the internet, you can work from anywhere. So we started working from Hawaii. And then I started to really research, where did tikis come from and why do they look like this, and why do some look like that and some don't look like this. And there's a lot of misconceptions about tikis out there in the world, even in Hawaii, even from like the people who run the historical parks have like conflicting ideas about which tikis represents which god, or if it does represent any god at all, because supposedly nobody can tell you, supposedly this is a secret, nobody can tell you that any particular tiki represents any particular god. There's no way anyone can positively 100% tell you that, because there's no, of course, written language, and there's no person who's lived that long to say, yeah, when I carved this tiki, I was thinking of Ku. Now, there is very, very well known that tiki that has a big wide mouth, on the sides. There he is. This kind of tiki, which has the big wide mouth, is very, very famous. This is actually called, they think, the war god Ku, only because it was found in the Kona area on the Big Island of Hawaii. King Kamehameha, who lived on the Big Island of Hawaii in the Kona area, had dedicated himself to the war god Ku. So they assumed this must be the war god Ku. But in reality, it's just that style of art that carver was doing, who happened to live in Kona with King Kamehameha. That's the way he carved. Because you go to the other islands, you don't see any war god Kus like that. They're all different. Every island's tiki is painted very different. So my theory is that each island's artist, their best artisan who knew how to carve tikis, designed all of their tikis, and that's none of them mean anything. Especially when you go to Hawaii, when you go to the ABC store, and it says, "This is the money tiki, and this is the love tiki." Because first off, there was no money in ancient Hawaii. Nobody had money,
Right.
So all of that's this obviously touristy stuff.
So for this season of Tune In, we're talking about the appropriation. And the question is it appropriation or is it appreciation?
Or is it appropriate? Well, I have a funny story about that too.
All right,
So
let's hear it.
and that was one of the reasons I wanted to go to Hawaii and investigate this stuff, because I was in LA and I got dragged into this tiki art thing by Ken Ruzick. I was at a tiki party or tiki exhibit at some bar. I can't remember which one it was now, but I was looking at some artwork and I was like, "Oh, this is really neat tiki art." And Ken Ruzick came up to me and we talked about it. And so I said, "Well, I mean, is it appropriation? Is it appreciation? Is it appropriate?" And he goes, "In some ways, we are making fun of an ancient religion, I guess, but nobody practices that religion anymore. Not the true religion. The true religion was called the Kappa religion. You worship the wooden idols, and they had very, very, very strict rules, a lot of rules, and every king that came up made more rules. It was his job. So they had so many rules. There had to be one guy in each village to try to keep track of all the rules, and he was called, I think he was called the Kappa man. So you Kappa means yeah, that's kapu. You can't do that. And so he had to keep track of all that. And there was only, like, say if you ate a banana on the wrong day, or if a guy sat down to eat with his wife, there's a lot of misogynistic rules. There was only one penalty, and that was death, unless you could get to a place of refuge, a place of refuge where you were safe. If you get there, you're okay. But otherwise, there's one penalty, and it was death. So it was a very repressive ancient religion at that time. Maybe it's gotten a little better now, and people have, gotten in the 70s, there was a renaissance of the Hawaiian culture, which is, there's a lot of beautiful things about Hawaiian culture. Like Hawaiian culture developed, I think, three of the most amazing things of any culture in the world. One, they designed surfing, which is like amazing, right? And two, they designed the hula, which is speaking with your hands and your hips and all that, which is one of the most in really important and incredibly well ways to communicate something. Because the way they would do it was one-on-one, with you were there with somebody else, they're dancing the hula and they're telling you the story and they're kind of teaching it to you. And the best way to communicate something to someone is to teach it to them. And then the third thing that they invented was living aloha, trying to live aloha with everybody, because you're on an island, so you don't want to really kill everybody else, and you're trying to live aloha. You're trying to be the best you can and to love everybody around you. Of course, there were a lot of wars, but those were usually reserved to the upper classes of Hawaii. But so I'm in Hawaii, and I am conflicted. I really want to be painting this stuff, and I am, but I am very concerned. And as we lived in this very small town on Hawaii, everybody really kind of starts to know everybody else. So I've gotten to know him pretty quickly as this Howley guy who came from LA, who's now painting tiki stuff. And gee, the tiki stuff is really cool, but I don't know, everyone's kind of up in the air about it. So what I did is we got to know one of the representatives of our area, and she knew very much some Hawaiian elders. And so she wanted to introduce me to one, because I had asked her a question. I'm like, I still need to find somebody really like major who I can talk to and ask directly about this. Somebody who's really, really Hawaiian. And there's a lot of Hawaiian people there who maybe are not really Hawaiian. Maybe they're Portuguese or Chinese or Japanese, and they've lived there a while, but they're not really Hawaiian, So I wanted to find a real Hawaiian person to ask. So I got to meet this guy, and his name was rather long, so everybody called him Angel, and he was a Hawaiian elder. And I went to go meet him at a KK, or Surf for the Earth KK surfing competition, which is a little kids surfing competition. So he went down to this wonderful, beautiful surf beach near where we lived, where they're holding the competition. And we had volunteered. We gave all these beach towels, so like no matter who wins, everybody gets a beach towel kind of thing. So the kids are all like thrilled. And the rep finds me and she goes, "Oh, here's Angel. He's over here." So I walk over to where he is, and he's in a tent and he's making sandwiches for all the kids, that kind of a thing. And he goes, "I've never met this guy." He's like, "I don't want to talk to you." And I'm like, "Oh." And so he goes, "Let's go for a walk." And he takes me down to the beach. We go for a short walk, and it was kind of like meeting a cross between Yoda and King Kamehameha in a weird way. This guy was so plugged in. It was kind of frightening. I don't know if you've ever met somebody like that. It's funny that you think you can influence all of Hawaiian culture. So he goes, "I know what your question is." And first of all, he thought it was amusing that he thought me, one little person, could affect Hawaiian culture. To him, Hawaiian culture is the universe. So you're not really going to be able to appropriate the universe. Don't worry. He says the reason you are here is because Hawaii appropriated you and brought you here to paint this new version of what it wants to communicate to people. Because now this stuff is like all over the world. I mean, the tiki art and tiki bars have been opening up in Europe and all over the place. And he said, "So don't worry about it." He says, you do what you feel good here in, and just follow that, and you'll be fine. Don't worry about you're not doing anything to hurt Hawaiian culture. First off, because that's impossible. Hawaiian culture is going to go on forever, and do what's in your heart because your heart is what brought you here. So he was such an amazing guy. And when you hear something like that, I mean, it felt like lightning had struck me and put me into the sand. Like, that felt great. And then a funny thing that happened quickly after that, somehow the University of Hawaii in Hilo asked me to speak to a class of Hawaiian students about tiki culture. So here I was, some Howley guy. I'm going to go speak to an auditorium of like really Hawaiian children and from descendants of Hawaiian people about tiki culture. And so I didn't know what to expect, but it was fine. It came out great. They loved it. And surprisingly, they did not know about tiki bars becoming very popular all over the world. They were kind of shocked. They're like, people like, dig tiki bars like in France or Germany, and they're all kind of surprised. I showed them on the internet where they can go and look stuff up and all the big tiki mug stuff, and so we as we discussed, we reasoned that in ancient Hawaii, tiki was spread over an archipelago of a certain area of the tropics. Was pretty well known, but now tiki is worldwide. It's completely known. Almost anywhere you go in the world, you can find somebody or find an actual tiki bar. So it's like, 1,000 times bigger than it's ever been. So saying that you are diminishing it is kind of the actual opposite of what's happening to it. Now, it's not that very strict misogynistic religion that was performed many, many hundreds of years ago, which is probably a good thing. But there's other religions like that now anyway. So, but all the good things have risen to the top, The aloha is still there, and the surfing is still there, and the hula is still there, and all that good stuff has survived, which I think is a great.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like you had a really cool experience getting to talk to some real Hawaiian cultural people who could explain a lot. So
yeah,
really cool.
when you find them, there's a lot of people you have to go through to get to the real Hawaiian people to find them, and they only live on certain parts of the islands and all. But when you find them, it's magical. It's really magical. They're really amazing, loving people who do live aloha.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, and we really like that new mug and the hat idea, so that's gonna lead us into our next question, which is, how do you come up with new designs? And what is your, collaboration process with other creators and artists?
I have a wonderful collaboration process. There was a guy named uh, I lived on the Big Island, right? So I was working on one side of the island on the dry side, and I didn't even know until I found him at some like little festival art fair that there was another guy making tiki art, but he lived on the wet side of the island. Like we were like completely different sides, and so we met up, and he kind of does this like Mexican Day of the Dead tiki art style. And it was like, I thought that was really neat. So I thought our stuff mixed together. So we first started working together. His name is Jacob Medina. And we first worked together on a painting. And then everyone said that painting would be a great mug. And that turned into a mug. And then that turned into a whole series of like Mesoamerican, semi-Hawaiian, designs. As if the Kon-Tiki had actually really proven that South America had made it to Hawaii, and they were, and then all the gods had mixed together, which it didn't really happen, but it could have. So we kind of continued with that thought. So that was a lot of fun. And one of the other things that that's new that I'm really excited about is so I had some making mugs. A lot of times you make the mugs, and I give all the exact pointers that I want it to look like, the front and the back. You draw the front and the back. And this one, Jacob and I also worked on this one together. We've been doing that on several mugs. But you get this kind of mug, and I always felt like it got out of you. You do all this stuff. It kind of changes when it turns into 3D. It always changes into something else. And then it goes away and it gets fired in a kiln somewhere, and you have no control over that. And then it comes back, and you're like, that's it. That's pretty neat. That's not the color I would have thought of. So I decided to get my fingers more into that whole part of it too. So I wanted to find out. Like I took one of my monkey mugs. I tried one really subtle at first because I just wanted it to be like just maybe like look like it was made out of marble, and so I did this with just a little bit of like marbling on it, so that would look like something that you might see in some kind of swanky hotel or something. You'd be in your room, and you're just like, why is there a marble or shrunken head monkey thing on my table? So I did all that. Those were a lot of fun. Oh, and then this one, when I did a mug a while ago called the Lucky Sucker, I did it for Latitude 29, which
I have
is
it in pink.
was that?
I
You
have
got that one in pink? Yeah. So I took a purple one, and I decided to reglaze it. It was all done. It's been glazed twice, right, with the little glaze on. So I took it and I glazed it again anyway, and it did a weird thing. It kind of shrank down, and it all turned. I put two different blue glazes on it. It kind of erased some of itself, but it turned this really, really interesting kind of like or very organic thing. I mean, the originals are organic, but this is like even more organic. And I had this with me at the Tiki Oasis last year, and the one thing on my table, of all the things on my table, everyone said, "How much is that one?" And I was like, "Well, it's just like a test. I don't know if I'm going to get rid of it. Really, I'm not sure." Like, well, I want that one. I want that one.
Yeah.
And actually, this is actually not that one. I actually ended up selling that one because someone said, what's your price? And I named something crazy, and they said sold. And I was like, I meant
like,
more
really?
than that. But this is probably not a good thing to do because this could eat your kiln. Like if you re-kiln, so if you refire it, it can like melt down into your kiln and eat that, which is not a good thing. And if you're borrowing a friend's kiln, that's really not a good thing. So of all kinds of ideas. And then when something comes up, like a project comes up, I just start flipping through my sketchbooks and finding something that that grabs me again or makes sense. A lot of times it's funny, you go through those old sketches and you're like, oh, this is a dumb idea. Why would I sketch that up? You totally forget what you drew.
All right. So how do you engage with the Tiki Shark community and your fans?
Oh, it's kind of weird. It's like, I guess we're all products of the modern age. Everything is online. Very rarely does anybody actually ever get to meet anybody face to face. And the whole idea of like people having these middle names, like Brian, Brad, Tiki Shark, Parker, and there was like Tom, Big Toe, Laura. Everybody had these Tiki Frank and Swizzle Tiki, and everybody had these names because back in the late '90s or early '90s, middle '90s, when the counterculture of the Tiki thing was happening, and everybody would meet at these chat groups online. And, then we'd plan a big party over at a bar or over someone's backyard or their house or something. But everybody online had a tiki name. And so when you go to the party, you wouldn't know anybody because, you didn't really know anybody's pictures really. And they had to walk around saying, "Hi, I'm Tiki Shark, Tiki Shark. I'm Tiki Fred. Oh, hey, Tiki Fred, how you doing?" And that's how all these secret code names came up really because it was just like something that happened from the internet. And so that kind of continued because the audience just, that is how everybody meets anybody nowadays is online. And it also enabled me to move to Hawaii when I did because I was able to sell not just to my local gallery in my very small town in Kailua Kona, which I would not have been able to make a living doing that at all, but I could sell to people worldwide. And that helped a lot. I mean, that was the only reason I was able to move to Hawaii for when I did, because otherwise I'd have to just be living at Los Angeles where you have a lot more flow of just foot traffic, people you can meet or stores you can go and get your stuff in. But now it's everybody's online. Everybody's a star online.
So what feedback have you received from customers that maybe have impacted your business?
I mean, the best things I get when I talk to people is they say, "Oh, this is hanging in my basement tiki bar, and we live in Mankato, Minnesota, and right now it's January, and we're going to put on some Martin Denny. We're going to make some Mai Tais. We're going to go downstairs and turn on the heater, and we're going to pretend that we're in Hawaii or the fantasy version of Hawaii, where where there's only lovely tikis and happy people and all." And that's when you hear that, that's wow, you're really able to affect somebody in a really positive, wonderful way. That means a lot. That means an awful lot to be able to do that. And then painting something, I see it, I imagine it being in someone's home tiki bar, hopefully a big bamboo frame around it or behind a bar or something like that. That's where I always imagine it going. So
All right.
I will have to keep you guys in contact. And you
Yeah.
have to come visit my webpage and see what's going on.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today.
You're so welcome.
It was a
Bye,
lot of fun.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right, guys, that's the sound of our Mai Tais getting low, so we're going to go for a refill.
Thanks for listening and stay tuned to the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in.